we are going to talk a little bit about umpiring because we got news, not who dropped it. It was a Nightingale bomb on Monday afternoon that Angel Hernandez has gone to the umpire school in the sky. He is with the other Angels now. He is not dead, but he has simply retired. The league's most famous or infamous umpire has called it a career after 33 years of calling balls, strikes, safes, and outs in the sport's highest league. So let me ask you, Bailey, what was when you saw this news, okay, Angel Hernandez, the much maligned poster child of bad officiating, what was your first reaction?
I was sad. I was saddened by this news. I think most people were celebrating. They were dancing in the streets. They said, "Oh, our national nightmare is over. Angel Hernandez is gone from officiating Major League Baseball games." I was sad. I was sad because of the timing, first and foremost. Like, I don't want to speculate or anything like that, but it's weird to have to retire in the middle of the season versus if he, was announcing, "Hey, this is my one last ride and I'll be done after, the 2024 season." So that made me sad that that this decision was somewhat involuntary one way or another, or he had other priorities that needed tending to. But I was saddened because a guy who everybody knows is going away. And, I think that's the same for, if a player goes on a retirement tour and maybe they weren't your favorite player, maybe they played for a team you didn't like, but you're still going to miss them because you're missing a memorable face from the game of baseball. And we're going to miss Angel Hernandez in that weird way, even though he was, I would say, largely an unpopular character.
So let's zoom out and try to summarize Angel Hernandez, the character, because I'm sure some people listening know the name, but don't know the game. Okay. Because Angel Hernandez was in many ways one of a kind. So he rose to prominence as the bad umpire, I would say, in the last 10 to 15 years. And it really elevated once Joe West retired a couple of years ago. Joe West had been the longest tenured umpire. He had been the recipient of so much scrutiny as a mediocre umpire. And what made Hernandez a good punching bag for people, there were a couple things. One, he was bad. He was bad at the job. He was below average at the job, both calling balls and strikes and elsewhere. He is distinctive looking, right? When he takes off his mask, he's got and I mean this nicely, he's got a big face, right? And I say this as someone with a big face. You, I would say, Bailey, have a little face, but Angel's got just a big old face. And so when you see his big old face, you're like, that's Angel Hernandez, right? And then the third thing is that he was about the lifestyle, okay? He loved umping, and he was embroiled in bizarre events and interactions, and he was a character in our world. Now, was he actually that bad? Yes and no. The stats say that he was 96th out of 132 umps in the StatCast era, according to Ump Scorecard's accuracy metric for calling balls and strikes behind the plate. Bailey, can you give a little bit of context, just like how bad that is, 96th out of 132?
Yeah, I mean, so I would say, just as a general trend in baseball umpiring, umpires have gotten better at aping or mimicking the StatCast strike zone. Before that, it would have been, Pitch FX. Before that, it was Quest Tech, which was the software used to monitor umpire performance. But things have generally trended better, and the trend is older umpires are a little more creative. They're more willing to paint outside of the box, and the newer umpires are like very strict rulebook StatCast, get it right in that regard. So for him to be 96th, honestly, if you were to adjust it for the fact that he umpired for 33 years, he would actually probably be a lot better than many of his peers in terms of, umpires who came to prominence, in the 90s, for example. So yeah, but 96 out of 132, I mean, as you put it, that is still below average. And that means you're probably getting the call right on a ball strike decision about 90-ish% of the time. And the top tier guys are going to be closer to 95.
Right. So over the course of a game, that's 3 calls, 2 calls, right? Which what you wouldn't think that would kind of gnaw at you over time. But Angel has had some very famous misses. He had a game earlier this year. I think it was the furthest outside the zone called strike 3 in the StatCast era on a slider to Wyatt Langford, rookie for the Texas Rangers, from JP France, pitcher for the Houston Astros. That call is crazy. Go back and watch that one. It's nuts. But then, yeah, I mean, he just has so many big misses. There was his final regular season ejection was the Kyle Schwarber one on Sunday Night Baseball back in 2022, where Schwarber had the very famous rant where he was like pointing, outside you missed, inside you missed, up you missed, and down you missed. That was his final regular season heave-ho. His final ejection total, he threw out Lance Lynn and Oli Marmol in spring training this year. And to have the chutzpah, the gumption to toss somebody in spring training is its own very bizarre, unique thing. And do you remember this whole thing, Bailey, where he threw out Lance Lynn and then Lance Lynn went to the bullpen to finish his pitches because he had to throw, and Angel wouldn't resume the game until Lance left the bullpen.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to what you said about he loved being the umpire. He loved playing the role of the bad guy in many ways. And that is a good example. Even in spring training, he's saying, this is my house.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I tweeted the picture the other day of his license plate on his car literally says, "You're out." Okay. That's how much this dude was about the lifestyle. And I think as fans, as baseball watchers, we want the opposite, right? We have taught ourselves to believe that umpires should be like wallpaper. They are not characters. They are people whose names we should not know. Notoriety and infamy is not ideal for them. I think you and I disagree with that. I don't want my umpires to be bad, but I want them to lift the game up. I want them to elevate the game. I want them to be involved in it. If someone is going to stand on a Major League Baseball diamond, I don't want them to be an appendage. I want them to be a participant.
Yeah, I don't want them to be mannequins. I want them to have definable features, some good, some bad.
And I think the last thing to just bring up with Angel is he sues MLB. Right. So he sues MLB for discrimination. And the basis of his suit was, I have been around for so long and you have not promoted me. The way that MLB umpiring crews work is there is a crew chief, right? Crew chiefs make more money. They are more likely to be selected for playoff assignments, and those have bonuses attached to them. And so one would think that umpiring in the majors for 30 years would have earned Angel some more opportunities in a crew chief position. That was not the case. He believed that there was discrimination involved in the response to the suit. And this is kind of the most damning moment for Angel. In the response to the suit, MLB essentially goes, "We were not being racist. You just kind of suck at this job." And I believe the exact quote, let me pull it up, "Unsuitable to serve in a permanent leadership role and umpire in MLB's highest profile games," right? And that is truly sad to have your boss, the organization, say to you, "Nope, this had nothing to do with you being named Angel Hernandez. It had everything to do with you being bad at calling balls and strikes." But I do think it raises an interesting question, right? Like, what is it, 30%-ish, 28% of players in the big leagues have Spanish as a first language? And the number of umpires who speak Spanish is significantly lower than that. And Angel Hernandez's role as a Spanish-speaking Latino, Cuban-born umpire, right? That is important. That is important in our sport to make sure there is a fairer playing field. He just so happened to be bad at the job.
Yeah, and that's kind of the issue, right? It's probably he had a correct message in doing so. Like, it is very possible that, there need to be more Spanish-speaking umpires in the ranks or in leadership positions like crew chief, or getting, assignments in postseason and all-star games. He just was not the person to deliver this message necessarily, and it kind of backfired and ultimately added to his reputation.
Right. And then I highly recommend everybody go read an article, I'll tweet it out later, that was in the Miami Herald in 1993 when Angel Hernandez went to umpire his first game in Miami, the city he grew up in. And it goes into Angel Hernandez's love of umping from a young age. He liked playing baseball, but he would leave his Little League games, change into the umpire outfit in the restroom, and then go call balls and strikes. And that is so, like, he became the villain, man. He became the villain he never wanted to be. It was a role that was deserved, a role that was earned. But at the beginning, all this guy wanted to do was call balls and strikes.
He reminds me of Nicholas Angel, the character in Hot Fuzz. The main character tells the origin story of him driving his little like tricycle and arresting people, and then he grows up to be a cop. That's basically what Angel Hernandez did. He grew up to be the baseball cop, and that's what he wanted to be all along.
We say this in the show all the time. Umps are cops. But with Angel out the door, it leaves a void. It leaves a position that needs to be filled. He was the true punching bag. He was the poster child for bad umping. If I asked any baseball casual who is the worst umpire, many of them would say Angel Hernandez.